Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm filming on my phone today because my computer decided to just not work. Well, it works, but just like all of my settings for recording just gone, just not working. So instead of sitting here for hours trying to mess with it, I'm just gonna film on my phone and deal with that later. So I'm reviewing Nobody 2 today, which is a sequel to Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk as Saul Goodman. Hutch. Hutch is his name. I have seen the first movie. I watched it, according to Letterboxd, I watched it in 2022. I don't really remember much. I watched a recap before or after I saw the movie, the second movie. Honestly, I don't really remember much. I do remember the bus scene, which is like the most popular scene. I don't remember the rest. I did enjoy the movie though, nonetheless. I do think the third act for the second one is probably the weakest part. All the stuff leading up to it was good. It starts with Bob Odenkirk, who plays Hutch. Something that happened at the end of the last movie, he owes money and he's been paying it off by doing these hits, basically. Him and his family are growing apart again, like in the first one, and so they decide to go on vacation, and they bring Christopher Plummer with them, his dad. So they go to Plummerville, and Hutch says that's where he used to get taken to when they were a kid. They had one vacation a year, and it was to that place, and you find out later why and all this other stuff. Again, the setup for it was really good. You saw it in the trailer, like when they're at the arcade, and he like hits the girl's hat, and he like goes back in there and starts beating the dudes up, and it gets him put on the radar of Colin Hanks, who plays like a corrupt sheriff, and he does a pretty good job. I feel like he could have been the main villain. I'll talk about that later. Keeps unraveling and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and he has to shoot and fight his way out of this one. After watching a recap for the first one, the first one was definitely a lot smaller scale. Kind of like the first John Wick, and this one they kind of sets it up with more bad guys, bigger action sequences, more fight scenes. The fight scenes were cool. Again, like the first two acts, they were cool. They were a lot more gritty, a lot more, again, like David Leitch is a producer, so you kind of get those John Wick-esque fights. Of course, he doesn't fight the same way John Wick does. He fights he's more like a brawler kind of style, I would say. John Wick is he's more precise. Connie Nielsen is his wife, and they have 2 kids, and they're on a vacation, and of course, everywhere they turn, they keep getting into trouble. Well, Hutch keeps getting into trouble, and it leads to this villain who is played by Sharon Stone, who I think was probably the worst part of the movie. Not that she's a bad actress, just the writing they did for her was not very good. It was a very over-the-top villain. I'm sure that's what they were going for. They were trying to do like a cheesy, like 90s kind of whatever, but it didn't really work. It kind of came off as cringe at points, at least for me personally. She was one of those villains where people would talk about her and be like, she's the most evil person to ever exist. She has done evil things you cannot comprehend, and you don't even really see it. There's like one scene where it's like, that's kind of that was an evil thing to do, but again, like, she didn't even do it herself. She like told her goons to do it for her. Hollywood is doing this thing where they take like psychopaths and they make them all like, they're all like, ooh, and all goofy and stuff, and it's like, that's not how they are in real life. Like, you look at like serial killers and stuff, they're like calm and collected and sometimes charming. That's how they're able to get their victims into a vulnerable position to get murdered. They don't run up to their victims and go, ooh, I'm crazy, I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what she kind of does in the movie. It's just so weird. It's kind of like Oscar Isaac's dancing scene and Ex Machina, but if it was like cringe unironically, if that makes sense. Because like in Ex Machina, like when he's dancing, it's like he's a tech billionaire, it's like cringe like in the moment, but it works for the scene. In this movie, she's all dancing around to this song and they're trying to make it look like she's like crazy and insane, and it just doesn't work. Like, she's probably the worst part of the movie. And Colin Hanks, he probably could have been the main villain, or I think they should have just continued like the John Wick movies, where you have the first movie, which if left alone, it could be a standalone movie, but then you have the sequel, which deals with the consequences of the first movie. So instead of having him like Hutch at the beginning be like, okay, so I owe all this money in debt and I have to do all these hits, and he's like, I'm gonna go on vacation and do this whole side quest with all these random nonsense. So I feel like he could have just continued on this path of what he was doing already, and then brought maybe these same characters in with that. It was kind of weird because I feel like in the John Wick universe, he couldn't be like, he wouldn't be like, I'm going on vacation, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Like, he can't do that. Like in the John Wick world, especially like when everyone's going after him. In this movie, it's like, you owe me $30 million for all this crap, and you got to do all these hits. And he's like, I'm going on vacation. And the dude's like, okay, I'll see you later. And it's just so funny. It's like, I feel like I know it's Bob Odenkirk, and I know it's supposed to be a little bit more silly, but it just feels kind of ridiculous. And the third act kind of gets a little convenient, like with the kills and whatever. It just seems like a very convenient way to end the movie. Again, the first two acts set up really good. Third act, when the main villain comes around and all the third act finale thing happens, and it's like, whatever. You know, it's fun seeing Bob Odenkirk kick ass. That's probably why the third act wasn't as good, because the first two acts, you know, he's actually like throwing down with people. In the third act, it's kind of just like, all right, we're setting traps everywhere, and then they just happen to be walking into the traps, and then we're just killing all the enemies like it's so easy, and then the movie ends. But, you know, the first two parts when he's actually kicking ass is sweet. I don't think the sequel really needed to exist, honestly. If they were going to do a sequel, they should have continued the story from the first movie. Maybe somehow brought this town into the original story, like with all the money he owes, because he still owes $30 million at the end of the movie. So, like, are they going to touch on that in the next one? I mean, overall, I enjoyed it as an action film. I think all the characters did fine. Bob Odenkirk, he still proves that he can, you know, kick ass. I don't know if they should make a third one. I don't know if this movie will even do that great. It's gotten like decent reviews. I don't know if I agree with a lot of them. So I guess I'll do the rating. If I had to give it a rating, I'd go 3 out of 5. You know, I was gonna go lower, but again, I enjoyed the first two acts, and the last part was kind of just like, whatever. You love Bob Odenkirk. He's probably the main reason you're seeing the movie anyway, honestly. And let me know if you've seen Nobody 2. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you like the first one? Did you not like the first one? Are you like me? Did you watch it once and don't even remember anything at all? Yeah, let me know. Hit the like button, subscribe. Peace.